Hello, and welcome to Accents, Dialects, and Languages, Oh My! As the title of this vlogling suggests, today we are going to talk about accents, dialects, and languages. I will be focusing primarily on dialects and the visual representation of dialect variations using dialect maps. To start, let's review the differences between these three terms. Everyone speaks a language, and every speaker of a language has an accent. An accent is a regional, phonological, or phonetic distinction. It refers to characteristics of speech that convey information about the speaker's dialect and may reveal what area they are from. A dialect is a regional variety of a language. The term dialect is used by linguists to describe mutually intelligible varieties of language. When two varieties are mutually intelligible, it means that speakers of one variety can be understood by speakers of another variety. If two varieties of a language are not mutually intelligible and speakers cannot understand each other, they are different languages. Regional dialects differ in pronunciation, lexical choices, and grammatical rules. These differences are very minor when compared to the totality of the grammar. Because dialects are regional varieties of a language, most differences in dialect are based on geographic regions. Dialects were introduced to specific regions by their early settlers, and then moved along with settlers as they migrated. For example, the origins of many regional dialects of American English can be traced to the people who settled in North America in the 17th and 18th centuries. These early settlers already spoke different dialects of English and brought these differences with them to each of the 13 colonies. By the time the American Revolution occurred, there were three major dialect areas: Northern dialect, Midland dialect, and Southern dialect. Another example of this occurred in Britain, with a very specific dialect rule. The British settlers used an R-drop rule in their dialect, and as they moved westward, so did the R-drop. This R-drop is still spoken today in Boston, New York, and Savannah. However, although some of the original rules still exist today, dialects are not exactly the same as they were when the settlers originally arrived. This is because dialects are not frozen relics. They are always moving and changing. One type of change that can occur is a chain shift. This is a coordinated, typically stepwise, change in the pronunciation sounds in at least one variety of a language. One example of a chain shift is the Northern Cities vowel shift, which is a change that affects 6 different vowels and is occurring in northern parts of the United States. This change is a synchronic dialect change, which means that it is occurring now. Although the changes in these examples are in phonological variation between dialects, variation amongst dialects occurs in other forms as well, such as lexical variation. One way to visually show differences between dialects is using dialect maps. Hans Kurroth published dialect maps and dialect atlases of a region on which dialect differences are geographically plotted. Dialectologists who created the map noted the places where speakers use one word or another word for the same item. The geographic boundary between the usage of two different linguistic forms is called an isogloss, and a bundle of isoglosses is called a dialect boundary. We will now look at some dialect maps to help illustrate these concepts. To start, here's a dialect map showing lexical variation for the words used to describe a group of 2 or more people. As you could probably guess without looking at the key, the color green represents the word y'all. Although the dialect boundaries are pretty clear on this map, it still illustrates the point that isoglosses are actually permeable and non-fixed linguistic boundaries. The colors on dialect maps always differ throughout, and they are never totally solid. So even though you can tell where isoglosses could be formed, they are not fixed structures that say that lexical terms or word pronunciations cannot be used in any region other than the one marked off by the isogloss. This next map looks rather similar to the last one. and shows the phonological variation for the pronunciation of the second vowel in pajamas. It is interesting that the United States is so split on this pronunciation. Just like the last map, this map also has pretty clear dialect boundaries, and funny enough, the variation appears to be in the same areas. However, the next two maps do not have clear isoglosses and dialect boundaries. Apparently, there is a lot of variation amongst the word used for this specific traffic situation. The colors differ all across the map, and there are no clear regions using one term or another. This map depicting variation amongst the pronunciation of pecan also does not have clear dialect boundaries, and almost every state seems to vary in their pronunciation. Thank you for joining me for my vlogling today. I hope you learned a lot about accents, dialects, and languages.